The year is 2028. Imagine the political landscape. Donald Trump, having potentially completed a second term, faces the constitutional limit. Yet, whispers abound. What if he simply refuses to leave? This question, once confined to speculative fiction, now echoes in political discourse. Trump himself has hinted at desires for extended service. Such statements ignite a firestorm of debate. They captivate a public accustomed to his norm-shattering political style. The very idea challenges the bedrock of American democratic traditions, a peaceful transition of power. The political climate is more polarized. Trump's base is uniquely loyal. His past actions, particularly concerning the 2020 election, lend a certain gravity to these speculations. The public remains intrigued and, in many quarters, deeply concerned. The question of what if looms larger than ever before. The media amplifies these discussions. Every cryptic remark is analyzed. Pundits debate the likelihood, the legality, and the potential fallout. The line between campaign rhetoric and genuine intent becomes increasingly blurred. One often discussed hypothetical route is the VP trick. Trump could run as vice president on a ticket. The elected president, perhaps a loyalist, would then resign. This would allow Trump to ascend to the presidency. However, this clever maneuver hits a significant constitutional roadblock. The 22nd Amendment clearly states that no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. The 12th Amendment adds another crucial layer of protection. It stipulates that no person constitutionally ineligible to the office of president shall be eligible to that of vice president. Legal experts widely agree on this interpretation. If Trump is ineligible for a third presidential term, he is, by extension, ineligible to serve as vice president. Any attempt would undoubtedly trigger immediate legal challenges, likely destined for the Supreme Court. What about changing the Constitution itself? This is another path some loyalists might dream of. They could attempt to pass a constitutional amendment. However, amending the U.S. Constitution is an incredibly difficult process. It requires a two-thirds supermajority vote in both the House of Representatives and the Senate. Following that, 3/4 of the states must ratify the amendment. In today's deeply polarized political environment, achieving such consensus is almost unimaginable. Perhaps the most realistic scenario involves Trump not in the Oval Office, but still dominating the political stage. He could formally step down after a potential second term. Yet, he could maintain immense political power and influence from outside the White House. This shadow presidency is a concept many find plausible. He has already demonstrated an uncanny ability to command attention and loyalty without holding office. This would be a continuation, and perhaps an amplification, of that existing dynamic. His influence would not simply vanish with the end of a term. Trump could solidify his role as a kingmaker within the Republican Party. He could handpick and endorse candidates for president, Congress, and other key offices. His endorsement carries enormous weight with his base. Furthermore, he might launch his own media network. This would give him a direct channel to his supporters, bypassing traditional media outlets. He could continue holding large-scale rallies, maintaining supporter engagement, and exerting pressure on the political establishment. His grip on the Republican National Committee could also remain strong, shaping the party's direction and priorities. This continued, powerful presence would have a profound impact on the Republican field for 2028. Potential candidates might find themselves in a holding pattern, hesitant to make significant moves until Trump's own intentions become clear. He could, in essence, control the primary process without even being a candidate. This form of power, while not formal, could be incredibly potent. January 2029. A nation on the brink. Let us now consider the worst-case scenario. It is January 20th, 2029. A new president has been duly elected. However, Donald Trump, having completed his term, refuses to vacate the White House. He might claim election irregularities, echoing his rhetoric from 2020. He could encourage his supporters to protest, to descend on Washington. He might attempt to use any means at his disposal to delay or obstruct the peaceful transition of power. This would be an unprecedented constitutional crisis, a direct assault on the foundations of American democracy. The nation would undoubtedly hold its breath. The courts would almost certainly be involved, issuing rulings on the election's validity and the legal requirement to step down. Congress would have a critical role, potentially through impeachment proceedings or resolutions affirming the election outcome. The military leadership sworn to uphold the Constitution, not an individual, would face immense pressure. Their adherence to democratic principles would be paramount. Ultimately, the system is designed to ensure he would be removed. The consequences of such a refusal would be severe and far-reaching. Widespread chaos and protests would be almost inevitable. Demonstrations from various groups both supporting and opposing his actions could fill the streets. The The potential for confrontations and even violence would be alarmingly high. Political instability would skyrocket, shaking public faith in democratic processes. The inevitable, Dawn Law, legacy, and lingering influence. Despite any dramatic attempts to remain in office, the legal reality is clear. The U.S. Constitution and the established legal system do not permit a president to stay beyond their legally defined term limits. Nor can they remain after losing a re-election bid, regardless of personal desires or claims. The mechanisms for removal, though potentially messy and contentious, exist. The 20th Amendment is explicit. The incumbent's term ends at noon on January 20th. At that moment, their constitutional authority ceases. Any continued occupation of the office would render them a trespasser, not a president. However, even if Trump cannot legally remain president, his influence is unlikely to wane completely. He could still be an extraordinarily powerful figure in American politics. His dedicated base of followers cultivated over years would likely remain loyal. His ability to command media attention, perhaps through his own platform, would persist. His sway over a significant portion of the Republican Party could endure. He might not hold the title, but he could continue to shape the political landscape in significant ways. This is a unique feature of his political career, the ability to maintain relevance and power outside traditional structures. This enduring influence means he could continue to run the show from the sidelines. He could act as a shadow president, influencing policy, endorsing candidates, and mobilizing his supporters. His voice would still resonate loudly in political debates.